My son was in ICU. When Mom called, "Tomorrow's your sister's birthday. Come help prep." "I can't. He's fighting for his life." She snapped, "Then you're cut off." I hung up, blocked her. The next day, my son opened his eyes and whispered, "Mom, about Grandma." "Tomorrow is your sister's birthday," my mother said. "You need to come over tonight and help us prepare." I stared through the glass wall of the pediatric ICU. My 9-year-old son, Ethan, lay beneath a white blanket, surrounded by wires, monitors, and machines that breathed and blinked for him. His face looked too small against the hospital pillow. A strip of tape held an oxygen tube beneath his nose. His right hand was swollen around the IV. 6 hours earlier, doctors had told me they didn't know when he would wake up. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, maybe never. "I can't come," I whispered. "Ethan is fighting for his life." There was a pause. Not a shocked pause, not the silence of a grandmother realizing her grandson might die. It was the annoyed silence my mother used when a restaurant got her order wrong. "Tava, don't start being dramatic." My fingers tightened around the phone, them in the ICU. "And your sister only turns 30 once. We already told everyone you'd make the cake and arrange the dessert table. People are expecting something professional." Professional. That was how my family described my work when they wanted it for free. I owned a small bakery called Morning Crumb. I woke at 3 every morning, mixed dough while the city slept, burned my wrists on ovens, and spent years turning flour, butter, and stubbornness into enough money to support Ethan and me. To my family, however, I was not a business owner. I was free labor with a bank account. "Mom, listen to me. Ethan nearly died. And Sophie has been planning this party for months." Something cold moved through my chest. "You're comparing a birthday party to your grandson being unconscious?" My mother exhaled sharply. "I'm saying the whole family shouldn't suffer because you can't manage your personal problems. Your father already paid the deposit on the venue. Sophie is devastated. We need you here." I looked at Ethan again. His monitor showed a steady green line jumping with every heartbeat. That tiny movement was the only thing keeping me upright. "Them not coming." My mother's voice changed. The softness disappeared. The mask dropped. "Then you're cut off." I almost laughed. Cut off from what? From the family dinners I paid for? From the parents whose overdue mortgage I had covered 3 times? From the sister whose rent, phone bill, and failed online boutique had quietly drained more than $20,000 from my savings? My mother continued before I could answer. "No Christmas. No holidays. Don't call us when you need something. And don't expect your father to leave you anything." I closed my eyes. For 34 years, I had waited for my mother to choose me once. Not forever, just once. Instead, she had finally made the choice perfectly clear. "Okay," I said. She went silent. I think she expected me to beg. "Okay," she repeated. "Yes, I understand." Then I hung up. I blocked her number. I blocked my father. I blocked Sophie. For the first time in my life, I didn't explain myself. I sat beside Ethan until morning, holding his warm fingers and listening to machines count the seconds. At 8:17 a.m., his eyelids moved. A nurse called the doctor. People rushed into the room. I stood against the wall, shaking so badly that another nurse had to hold my shoulders. Then Ethan opened his eyes. He looked confused, frightened, alive. I bent over him, crying into his hair. "Mom," he whispered. "I'm here, baby." His lips trembled. "Mom, about Grandma." My tears stopped. Ethan swallowed painfully. "She knew there were almonds in the cake." For most of my life, helping my family had felt like the price of belonging. My father, Richard, never asked politely. He announced what needed to be done and waited for me to obey. "The electricity is about to be disconnected. Your mother needs dental work. Sophie's car won't start. We're short on the property taxes." Each emergency arrived wrapped in the same message. Decent daughters help their families. When I was 23 and working at a grocery store bakery, I gave my parents half my paycheck because Dad said the house was temporarily underwater. When I was 27, I emptied the savings account I had created for culinary school because Sophie needed tuition money. She dropped out 8 months later. Nobody returned a cent. At 30, I started mourning crumb from a rented kitchen behind a closed Italian restaurant. I worked nights, delivered bread before dawn, and took custom cake orders on weekends. Ethan slept in a travel bed near the storage shelves because I couldn't afford childcare. My parents called it my little baking hobby. That changed when the bakery became profitable. Suddenly, Dad wanted to know my monthly revenue. Mom wanted elegant cakes for every family event. Sophie wanted pastries for her friends, cupcakes for office parties, and elaborate dessert tables for birthdays she could not afford. Whenever I mentioned invoices, Mom would smile sadly. "You charge strangers, Ava, not family." So I worked for free. I made Dad's retirement cake. I catered Mom's anniversary dinner. I created 600 miniature desserts for Sophie's engagement party, even though the engagement ended before the wedding. The ingredients alone cost me $2,800. Sophie posted photos of the table online and thanked everyone who helped make the evening magical. She didn't mention me. I told myself it didn't matter. Then, Ethan developed a severe tree nut allergy. He was 6 when it happened. One bite of a pistachio cookie sent him to the emergency room. After that, I became obsessive. Separate utensils, separate storage containers, ingredient labels checked twice. No unsealed food from other kitchens. My mother called me controlling. Sophie called Ethan the allergy prince. Once, during Thanksgiving dinner, Dad rolled his eyes while I read the label on a jar of sauce. "Let the boy live, Ava. I'm trying to keep him alive." Everyone laughed because Dad had said it like a joke. 3 days before Sophie's 30th birthday, Mom asked me to bring Ethan to their house after school. She said she missed him. She promised there would be no nuts anywhere. I hesitated, but Ethan loved his grandparents, or at least he loved the version of them he believed existed. I dropped him off at 4 and returned to the bakery. At 5:42, my father called. Not my mother, not Sophie. My father. His voice was panicked. There is something wrong with Ethan. I don't remember driving to their house. I remember the ambulance lights. I remember Ethan on the kitchen floor. I remember Sophie standing beside the counter, still filming a video for her birthday page while paramedics worked on my son. There was frosting on Ethan's sleeve. A half-eaten slice of almond praline cake sat on a plate near his backpack. My mother kept saying she didn't understand. The bakery told us it was vanilla. "What bakery?" I screamed. She didn't answer. The paramedics pushed me aside as Ethan's blood pressure crashed. At the hospital, doctors stabilized him, but the lack of oxygen had lasted too long. He was moved to intensive care, sedated, and monitored for neurological damage. My family disappeared before midnight. Mom sent one message: "Keep us updated." 2 hours later, Sophie posted a photo of herself crying. The caption read, "Some people bring chaos into every important moment." Tomorrow was supposed to be about love and family, but once again, someone else had to make everything about herself. She didn't name me. She didn't have to. My relatives filled in the comments. Poor Sophie, you deserve your special day. Some people can't stand not being the center of attention. One cousin wrote, Teva has always used that kid to control everyone. My aunt responded with a laughing emoji. I stared at those comments while sitting beside my unconscious son. Then Mom called and demanded I leave the ICU to prepare Sophie's party. After I blocked them, the family group chat exploded. I knew because my cousin Natalie quietly sent me screenshots. Dad wrote that I had abandoned the family over a minor medical scare. Mom said Ethan was stable and I was exaggerating to punish Sophie. Sophie claimed I had deliberately fed Ethan something dangerous because I wanted her birthday canceled. That lie spread quickly. By morning, people I barely knew were leaving 1-star reviews on my bakery's page. One said I was an irresponsible mother. Another said I used contaminated ingredients. A third accused me of poisoning my own child for attention. Morning Crumb's rating dropped from 4.9 to 3.1 in less than 6 hours. My manager, Claire, called from the bakery. Teva, what's happening? I don't know. We've had 11 canceled orders. Someone posted that the health department is investigating us. They aren't. I know, but people believe it. While Ethan slept, my family wasn't just celebrating Sophie. They were destroying the business that paid their bills. Then Ethan woke up and whispered that Grandma had known. I waited until the doctor confirmed he was stable before asking what happened. Ethan's voice was weak, so I leaned close. Grandma gave me cake, he said. I asked if it had nuts. What did she say? She said no, but Sophie said it was almond praline. My stomach turned. Then what happened? Grandma told her to be quiet. He closed his eyes for a moment, exhausted. She said one bite wouldn't hurt me. She said you made me scared of food. I pressed my fist to my mouth. Did you eat it because she told you to? He nodded. I started feeling itchy. I told Grandma. She said not to ruin the party. There are moments when anger is hot. This wasn't one of them. My anger became cold, organized, and frighteningly calm. I kissed Ethan's forehead. You didn't do anything wrong. Is Grandma mad at me? No, sweetheart. I looked through the glass wall at the waking hospital. Grandma doesn't get to be mad at us anymore. That afternoon, I called Claire. Do we still have the portable security camera we used for the Christmas market? The little black one? Yes, I think so. Why? I remembered lending it to Mom. She wanted to record the kitchen during Sophie's party preparations so she could make a time-lapse video. Check the cloud account. 20 minutes later, Claire called back. Her voice shook. Teva, you need to see this. The camera had recorded everything. My mother placing the cake on the counter, Ethan asking about nuts, Sophie clearly saying, Mom, that one has almonds. My mother lowering her voice. They'll be fine. Ava has filled his head with nonsense. Then Ethan took a bite. 12 minutes later, he began scratching his neck. The video spoke him asking for his emergency injector. Mom told him to sit down and stop performing. Sophie laughed. Dad walked through the kitchen, saw Ethan struggling to breathe, and said, Not today, kid. Your aunt gets 1 day. Only when Ethan collapsed did anyone call an ambulance. I watched the video once. Then I downloaded it onto 3 devices. Claire found more. Because the camera synchronized with the bakery account, it had also captured a conversation after the ambulance left. Sophie was crying, but not about Ethan. "My party is ruined." Mom hugged her. "We'll tell people Ava brought something contaminated from her bakery." Dad asked, "What if the boy remembers?" My mother replied, "He's 9. Ava will tell him what to think." I sat in the hospital hallway with my laptop on my knees and listened to that sentence again. Then I opened my banking records. In 5 years, I had transferred $86,430 to my parents and Sophie. Mortgage payments, car repairs, credit card debt, medical bills, party deposits, Sophie's failed boutique, Dad's investment opportunity, Mom's kitchen renovation. They had taken enough money to hire 10 caterers for Sophie's birthday, yet they still demanded my labor while my son lay unconscious. Natalie sent me another screenshot. Sophie had created a public fundraiser. The title was, "Help Our Family Recover After Ava's Bakery Emergency." The description claimed my carelessness had caused Ethan's hospitalization and forced the cancellation of Sophie's celebration. They had already raised $4,700. The fundraiser photo showed Sophie holding Ethan when he was 3. I reported it, but I knew removing it wouldn't be enough. They had depended on my silence for years. This time, silence would protect them. So I began saving everything. The ICU records, the ingredient list from the cake box, the security footage, the family chat screenshots, the fake reviews, the fundraiser, every bank transfer, every message where Mom promised the house contained no nuts, every voicemail demanding free work. Then Claire remembered the old bakery hard drive. 2 years earlier, I had changed bookkeeping systems. The previous hard drive still contained archived emails and invoice drafts. Inside, we found dozens of canceled invoices addressed to my family. Each time I had prepared to charge them, Mom or Dad had sent messages until I removed the bill. One email from Sophie read, "Don't embarrass me by acting like a cashier. Mom says you owe this family after everything they've done for you." Another message from Dad said, "Your bakery exists because we let you waste your 20s playing with flour. Remember who made you." They had given me nothing. Not the startup money, not the equipment, not even free childcare. But they had repeated the lie so often that part of me had begun to believe it. I copied the files into a folder labeled "The Cost of Family." Then I called a lawyer. Sophie held her birthday dinner the following Saturday. Ethan was still in the hospital, but he was improving. Doctors believed he would recover completely, though he would need therapy and careful observation. I had no intention of attending the party. Then Sophie posted an invitation publicly. "Come celebrate surviving betrayal, family drama, and one sister's desperate need for attention." Underneath, my father commented, "The truth will finally be told tonight." So I decided to help him. The dinner was held in a private room at an expensive restaurant. I knew the deposit had been paid with the emergency credit card I gave my parents 3 years earlier. At 7:15, I walked through the door carrying my laptop and the old hard drive. Conversation stopped. 23 relatives stared at me. Sophie sat at the center of the long table in a silver dress. Behind her was a sign that said, 30, thriving, and unbreakable. My mother stood first. "How dare you come here?" Dad pushed back his chair. "This is a family event." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm here." Sophie laughed nervously. "Did you leave Ethan alone to ruin my birthday again?" A few relatives smiled. Then the door opened behind me. Claire entered with our lawyer, Ms. Patel. Behind them came Daniel, Sophie's former fiancé. Sophie's smile disappeared. Daniel had ended their engagement 2 years earlier. My family told everyone he cheated. According to Sophie, he had stolen money and vanished. He hadn't. After hearing what happened to Ethan, Daniel contacted me. He still had messages from Sophie admitting she used his credit card to pay for her boutique and then accused him of theft when he demanded repayment. More importantly, he had a voice memo from my mother. In it, Mom told him that if he publicly blamed Ava for the missing money, the family would make the whole problem disappear. Daniel refused. That was why they destroyed his reputation. Dad pointed at the door. "Get out. All of you." "No," I said. "You wanted the truth told tonight." I connected my laptop to the restaurant's television. The first image appeared. Ethan, standing in my parents' kitchen. My mother's voice filled the room. "He'll be fine. Ava has filled his head with nonsense." Nobody moved. The video continued. Ethan asked for his injector. Mom told him to stop performing. Sophie laughed. Dad told him not to ruin her day. Then my son collapsed. My aunt covered her mouth. Natalie began crying. One of my cousins whispered, "Oh my God." My mom rushed toward the laptop, but Claire stepped in front of her. "That recording is backed up," I said. "Touching the computer changes nothing." "It's edited," Sophie screamed. I played the full, uncut file information, followed by the synchronized cloud record and the cake shop's ingredient label. Then came the conversation after the ambulance left. "My party is ruined," Sophie's recorded voice said. "We'll tell people Ava brought something contaminated from her bakery," Mom replied. Dad's face turned gray. Sophie stood so quickly that her chair fell backward. "You recorded us illegally." "No," Ms. Patel said calmly. "You recorded yourselves using Ava's camera, inside a house where it had been installed with your permission." Mom looked around the table. "She's doing this because she hates her sister." I changed the screen. Bank transfers appeared, one after another. $3,200, $7,800, $1,450, $12,000, $900, $4,600, $86,430. "This," I said, "is what hating Sophie cost me." Nobody laughed. I showed them the fake fundraiser, the messages planning to blame my bakery, the canceled invoices, the one-star review campaign traced to Sophie's friends and relatives. Then Daniel placed his black folder on the table. He played my mother's voicemail. "If you say Ava took the money, Richard will make sure Sophie pays you back eventually. Ava can handle people being angry with her. She's used to it." My mother sank into her chair. Daniel looked at the family. "I didn't steal from Sophie. She stole from me. When I tried to leave, they offered me money to blame Ava." Sophie threw her glass at the wall. It shattered beside the birthday sign. "You're all liars!" She ran toward the door, but Natalie stood up. "No, Sophie. We've been lying for you." That sentence broke something in the room. Relatives began talking at once. My aunt asked Mom how she could ignore Ethan's reaction. A cousin demanded to know whether the fundraiser money had been returned. Dad shouted that everyone should mind their own business. Mom cried that she had only wanted one peaceful birthday. I closed the laptop. "You nearly killed my son because his medical emergency was inconvenient." Mom reached for me. "Tava, please." I panicked. "You didn't panic. You waited." Her hand dropped. "You waited while he begged for medication. Then you planned how to blame me." Dad stepped closer. "You're destroying this family." "I like him." "No, I'm resigning from the job." "What job?" "The job where I pay, work, apologize, and stay quiet while all of you call it love." I placed 4 envelopes on the table. One contained formal notice that I had removed my authorization from my parents' mortgage account. One confirmed the cancellation of their emergency credit card. One demanded repayment of the fraudulent fundraiser. The final envelope contained a cease and desist order regarding the bakery. Dad tore his open. "You can't do this." "I already did." Mom began sobbing. "What will happen to us?" It was the first honest question she had asked me in years. Not what would happen to Ethan, not whether he would recover. What would happen to them? "I don't know," I said. "You'll have to figure it out without my money." Sophie stood near the doorway, mascara running down her cheeks. "You're really choosing that child over your entire family?" The room became silent. I walked toward her. "That child is my family." Then I left. I didn't look back when Mom called my name. I didn't stop when Dad threatened to sue. I didn't answer when Sophie screamed that I would regret humiliating her. Outside, the night air smelled like rain. For the first time, walking away did not feel like losing my family. It felt like saving the only family I had left. The video was turned over to the police and child protection investigators. My lawyer advised me not to post the footage immediately, but I published a carefully documented statement correcting the lies about Morning Crumb. I included the cake's ingredient label, hospital confirmation of Ethan's allergic reaction, screenshots of my family planning to blame the bakery, and proof that the fundraiser had been created without my permission. I did not show Ethan collapsing. That moment belonged to him, not the internet. My statement ended with, "My son's medical crisis was not publicity, family drama, or an inconvenience. Anyone who knowingly spreads false claims about my child or my business will hear from my attorney." Within 2 days, the fake reviews were removed. Customers returned. Then something unexpected happened. Parents of children with allergies began visiting the bakery. They thanked me for taking contamination seriously. A local pediatric allergy organization asked whether I could create a certified nut-free product line. Claire and I spent 3 months rebuilding the kitchen. We installed separate equipment, new storage, and stricter supplier controls. The line was called Ethan's Table. Part of every sale went to families who could not afford emergency allergy medication. Morning Crumb became busier than it had ever been. My family reacted exactly as I expected. Dad posted that I had weaponized a misunderstanding. Mom wrote long messages about forgiveness. Sophie claimed Daniel and I had planned everything because we were jealous of her happiness. But the truth had escaped their control. Relatives who had laughed in the group chat began deleting comments. Some apologized. Most blamed confusion. My aunt wrote, "I'm sorry, but you have to understand, we only knew what your mother told us." I replied, "You knew my son was in intensive care. You still laughed." She never answered. Natalie visited Ethan in the hospital and apologized without excuses. She gave me every screenshot she had saved. I thanked her. Then I told her I wasn't ready for a relationship. She accepted that. My parents left more than 40 voicemails. Dad's messages moved from threats to bargaining. He said the mortgage company had raised questions. He said Sophie couldn't repay the fundraiser. He said Mom was sick from stress. He said family disputes should remain private. Not once did he ask how Ethan was recovering. Mom finally sent an email with the subject line, "A mother's last request." She wrote that she had made one mistake during a stressful moment. She said I was punishing her for loving Sophie. She promised to attend allergy training if I restored the mortgage payments. I replied with one sentence, "All future communication must go through my attorney." Sophie came to the bakery 2 weeks later. She stood outside during the morning rush, crying loudly enough for customers to hear. "You ruined my life!" I stepped onto the sidewalk. "No, Sophie. I stopped financing it." She called me cold. I agreed. She said Mom might lose the house. I told her adults sometimes had to sell things they could not afford. Then she whispered, "What am I supposed to do?" For years, that question would have pulled money from my account before I could think. This time, I opened the bakery door. Get a job. I walked inside and locked it behind me. Ethan came home after 19 days in the hospital. For the first few weeks, he woke from nightmares calling my name. He became afraid to eat food he hadn't watched me prepare. We went to therapy together. I learned that saving a child's body did not automatically make him feel safe again. Trust had to be rebuilt slowly. One breakfast at a time. One honest answer at a time. I sold the house where Ethan and I had lived for 6 years. Too many relatives knew the address. We moved into a bright apartment above the bakery, with tall windows and enough space for Ethan to paint at the kitchen table. I changed my phone number. Only 8 people received the new one. None of them shared my last name. A year later, Ethan stood beside me at the grand opening of our expanded bakery. Above the entrance hung a new sign. Morning Crumb, home of Ethan Pyme's table. He had chosen the blue lettering himself. The line stretched around the block. Parents came with children carrying allergy bags and emergency injectors. Nurses from the ICU arrived together. Claire cried before we cut the ribbon. Someone asked whether my parents had apologized. I thought about Mom's emails, Dad's threats, Sophie's accusations, all the ways they had tried to rename cruelty as family loyalty. They apologized for the consequences, I said, not for what they did. That evening, after the customers left, Ethan and I sat on the bakery floor sharing 2 warm cinnamon rolls. "Do you miss Grandma?" he asked. "Sometimes I miss who I thought she was." He considered that carefully. "Is that the same thing?" "No." He leaned against my shoulder. "I don't miss being scared." Neither did I. For years, I believed being useful made me lovable. I believed every payment, every free cake, every swallowed insult earned me a permanent place at the family table. I was wrong. I was not guilty because they used me, but I would have been guilty if I had taught my son that love required him to accept the same treatment. So I kept the numbers blocked. I never restored the mortgage payments. I never made Sophie another birthday cake. On Mom's next birthday, I donated the exact amount I would have spent on her party to the pediatric ICU. The thank you letter arrived a week later. I framed it and hung it beside the bakery register. My mother had threatened to cut me off. In the end, she gave me the one gift I had never been brave enough to give myself: freedom.